Au cœur de la Méditerranée, l'eau est bien plus qu'une ressource, c'est l'essence même de la vie. Des vagues scintillantes aux paysages luxuriants, l'eau nous soutient et nous relie tous. Mais lorsque l'aridité s'installe, la terre se fissure, créant un tableau de désolation. C'est alors qu'un défi surgit, un défi qui nous rappelle de manière vibrante à quel point chaque goutte d'eau est essentielle à notre survie. Rejoignez-nous au Forum Méditerranéen de l'eau en Tunisie. Du 5 au 7 février 2024. Alors que nous célébrons, protégeons et chérissons cet élément précieux. Notez bien cette date, car ensemble, nous pouvons garantir un avenir où chaque goutte compte.
في قلب البحر الأبيض المتوسط، حيث الماء أكثر من مجرد مورد، إنه جوهر الحياة بحد ذاته. من أمواجه اللامعة إلى مناظره الخضراء الجميلة، الماء يحيينا ويجمعنا جميعاً. ولكن عندما يأتي الجفاف، تنشق الأرض وتتكون لوحة من الخراب. هنا تنبثق تحديات جديدة، تحديات تذكرنا بقوة مدى أهمية كل قطرة من الماء لبقائنا. انضموا إلينا في منتدى المياه البحر الأبيض المتوسط بتونس من 5 إلى 7 فبراير 2024، حيث نحتفل ونحمي ونعتني بهذا الجوهر الثمين. احفظوا تلك الأيام، لأننا معا نستطيع ضمان مستقبل حيث كل قطرة تهم.
In the heart of the Mediterranean, water is more than a resource, it's the essence of life itself. From the shimmering waves to the lush landscapes, water sustains and connects us all. But when aridity sets in, the earth cracks, creating a tableau of desolation. That's when a challenge emerges, a challenge that vibrantly reminds us of just how essential every drop of water is to our survival. Join us at the Mediterranean Water Forum in Tunisia from the 5th to the 7th of February 2024. As we celebrate, protect, and cherish this precious element. Save the date, for together, we can ensure a future where every drop matters.
Chers amis de l'eau, bonjour à tous. Notre région méditerranéenne a été de nouveau récemment touchée en son cœur par les forces de la nature au Maroc, en Grèce, en Libye notamment. Et l'IME tient à rappeler ici toute sa solidarité et sa compassion pour les populations endeuillées ou touchées d'une façon ou d'une autre par ces événements dramatiques. Mais, comme vous avez pu le constater ce week-end, notre Mare Nostrum a également connu de nouveau malheureusement la guerre, et pendant ce temps, le spectre catastrophique, catastrophe climatique et sécheresse à répétition se rapproche de plus en plus. Chers amis, la solution ne passera pas par la coopération, par la coopération et le partage de la prise de conscience de la préservation et du bon usage de l'eau pour tous les secteurs d'activité. Le partage des connaissances, des moyens humains et financiers. Dans ce cadre, l'IME, première plateforme d'échange des bonnes pratiques, se positionne en tant que promoteur des 4 piliers de la sagesse de l'usage de l'eau. À savoir tout d'abord, protéger les ressources naturelles en eau douce, renouvelables et conventionnelles, comme par exemple les zones humides, trop souvent oubliées, et revoir les usages de cette ressource, bien commun de l'humanité. Deuxièmement, veiller à mettre en œuvre des politiques de sobriété dans les différents usages, dans les pays, bien entendu, qui ont déjà atteint les ODD liés à l'eau et notamment l'ODD 6, tout en permettant aux autres pays d'y accéder en faisant preuve de solidarité. Troisièmement, se donner les moyens de garantir une efficacité optimale des installations existantes et en devenir afin de n'utiliser que les ressources nécessaires au développement de chacun en évitant tout gaspillage. Et enfin, quatrièmement, développer des ressources alternatives dites non conventionnelles en veillant à les associer aux énergies renouvelables, en priorisant celles qui rentrent dans l'économie circulaire telles que la réutilisation des eaux usées, comme nous le mettons en œuvre avec le projet de création d'un observatoire dédié pour la Méditerranée et le Sahel. À ce sujet, je vous signale que l'IME a été récemment sollicité par la FAO pour réaliser un état des lieux de l'usage du dessalement en agriculture dans le monde, ainsi que l'organisation d'une conférence d'experts au siège de la FAO à Rome les 21 et 22 mars prochains à l'occasion de la Semaine mondiale de l'eau. Cette semaine également aura lieu à Bali, Indonésie, le deuxième stakeholder meeting en préparation du 10e Forum mondial de l'eau de Bali pour mai 2024 et nous y serons représentés par deux de nos membres présents, Abdeslam Ziad du ministère de l'Équipement et de l'eau du Maroc et Ingrid Péchel de l'IDEC Casablanca pour présenter l'avancement du processus régional méditerranéen dont nous avons la responsabilité. Chers amis de l'eau, nous accueillons aujourd'hui notre 5e conférence dédiée à la gestion et à la planification des ressources en eau en Méditerranée avec la présentation des cas de l'Égypte et de la Turquie. Je remercie de nouveau François Gerber, vice-président de notre comité scientifique et technique, pour avoir assuré le pilotage de cette série de conférences, ainsi que nos intervenants du jour pour leur travail de préparation et leur disponibilité. Je vous rappelle que ces conférences font partie intégrale du processus régional méditerranéen que l'IME élabore dans le cadre du prochain Forum mondial de l'eau de Bali 2024 et qui connaîtra son point d'orgue lors du 5e Méditerranéen Water Forum de Tunis du 5 au 7 février 2024, pour lequel nous organisons le kick-off à Valence, Espagne, le 18 octobre prochain, en présence de Monsieur le ministre de l'Agriculture et de la Pêche de Tunisie, et auquel nombre d'entre vous participeront. À ce jour, plus de 120 personnes ont déjà confirmé leur présence et je profite de cette occasion pour rappeler à ceux qui s'étaient préinscrits et qui ne l'ont pas encore fait de bien vouloir confirmer leur présence à notre secrétariat pour la bonne organisation de l'événement. Ce kick-off se veut participatif, ouvert à tous. En effet, nous souhaitons profiter des échanges qui auront lieu durant cette journée du 18 octobre pour préciser et finaliser les concept notes des 6 sessions du 5e Forum méditerranéen de l'eau de Tunis et d'identifier les intervenants dans les 6 tables rondes correspondantes ainsi que les side events qui se tiendront lors de la première journée et les organismes et entreprises intéressés par le site d'exposition. Nous serons également présents lors de la prochaine Cairo Water Week qui aura lieu du 29 octobre au 2 novembre en Égypte, aux côtés de notre partenaire, l'Union pour la Méditerranée, avec lequel nous co-organisons le Forum méditerranéen de l'eau pour présider la table ronde sur le financement et les investissements liés à l'eau, ainsi que de la FAO pour participer à la table ronde sur les ressources en eau non conventionnelles et présenter à cette occasion l'avancement du projet de création de l'Observatoire des ressources en eau non conventionnelles et des énergies renouvelables dédiées pour la zone Méditerranée-Sahel. Je vous souhaite à toutes et à tous une excellente conférence. François, la parole est à toi.
Merci Alain pour cette introduction. Donc maintenant, nous allons nous concentrer un peu plus sur le sujet de la planification et de la gestion durable des ressources en eau. Et l'IME est très heureux de pouvoir vous présenter l'expérience et les défis actuels dans 2 grands pays de la Méditerranée, l'Égypte et la Turquie. 2 grands pays par leur taille, par leur population, mais aussi par leur histoire, leur capacité technique et d'innovation et leur influence régionale. Alors cette conférence est possible grâce aux intervenants qui vont prendre la parole successivement, que je présenterai à ce moment-là. Et comme j'ai eu la chance de consulter leur diaporama en avance de ce webinaire, je peux vous annoncer que nous allons bénéficier d'exposés de très haut niveau sur des problématiques passionnantes que l'on retrouve un peu partout dans le pourtour méditerranéen. Donc je remercie vivement nos orateurs, car ce sont eux qui donnent vraiment de la valeur à notre réseau, l'IME n'ayant de valeur que par le partage des expériences et la recherche de la façon de progresser tous ensemble. Alors, je vous rappelle que vous avez un bouton avec une map monde qui est pour l'interprétation, pour pouvoir écouter comme vous préférez en anglais ou en français. Et également que le chat vous permet de poser des questions ou de faire des remarques. d'apporter votre contribution tout au long de la conférence, même pendant que les orateurs parlent. Et nous essaierons à un moment intermédiaire, après les exposés sur l'Égypte, et à la fin, après l'exposé sur la Turquie, de répondre à quelques-unes des questions, pas toutes évidemment, mais j'en sélectionnerai moi-même quelques-unes pour donner la parole et la réponse des orateurs. Voilà, alors nous allons commencer par l'expérience de l'Égypte. Et donc, il y aura 2 orateurs successivement. Je vous présente, pour commencer, donc Monsieur Walid Hakiki, qui est le chef du secteur de la planification au ministère des Ressources en eau et de l'irrigation. Donc, il va nous parler principalement du défi que pose la croissance démographique de l'Égypte face au développement économique et aux ressources en eau qui sont malheureusement limitées. Voilà, Monsieur Walid Hakiki, vous avez la parole. Essayons de respecter aussi le temps disponible et donc peut-être de ne pas commenter toutes les diapositives de manière à respecter le timing.
Okay, thank you, Francois. Thank you very much. Can I share my screen, or should I share my screen, or will it be shared from your side?
We can share. We can. Ida can put it on the screen, and you say.
I can do that from my side if this is easier. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Can you see the screen now? Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. We'll. Sorry, this is not. Sorry. This is the one. We'll just, as Francois have mentioned, we'll just start with the challenge that you are facing in Egypt in general. When we talk about the water management, Egypt is one of the scarce countries, water scarce countries, when we define the physical water scarcity. So the region, the Arab region, the North Africa, and the West Asia is one of the most scarce regions in the world. This is also confirmed here with the renewable water resources in the different regions of the world, and we can see that also the Middle East and North Africa is the least has the least water resources in the world. Again, the Arab world is less than, on average, 500 cubic meter per capita per person per year, which is way below the water poverty, and actually also is the limit of the water scarcity, the absolute scarcity. So in general, the different challenges that are facing Egypt when we talk about the water management is population growth, limited water resources from on one side, but also increasing demands on the other side. So limited water resources, because we still have Egypt is mainly depending on the Nile. 97% of the water is coming from the Nile. So the rainfall in Egypt is very, very rare. So not more than 2%. So limited water resources, and also we have the impact of upper Nile developments. Also, you know, the issue of the GERD, the Renaissance Dam of Ethiopia, and the unilateral actions that also might impact the water resources in the future. On the other hand, we have an increase in water demand for different sectors, so municipal, agriculture, and industry, and then also we have increasing competition among those different sectors.
باشمهندس وليد السلايد ثابت ما بتغيرش.
Yeah.
We don't see your PowerPoint.
So sorry for that. Maybe I'll put it in that note in the play mode. Can you see it now?
No. حرك السلايدز ثابت على الاجمالي بتاع عدد السكان واحتياجات مياه الشرب.
دي اللي موجوده ولا ايه؟ Population, the Egypt main water challenges. Can you see that?
لا انت مش عامل شير، اعمل شير سكرين. في عدد سكان واحتياجات مياه الشرب، ده السلايد ثابت من اول ما اتكلمت.
I can share the screen for you if you prefer.
Yeah, if it's possible, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you. I think we'll go to the. I have talked about that. Sorry for that. I was thinking that you can see my screen, but again, this is the water scarce countries in the world, including Egypt. And then next slide. Also, the Middle East and North Africa. In the middle, you can see how low is the renewable water resources in that region. Next. And then also some of the comparison with different regions in the world that show that the Arab region is 500 on average, 500 cubic meter per capita per year, which is the lowest in the world. That's actually reaching the absolute water scarcity limit. And next. And here the challenge that I was talking about. Sorry for that, but so the mainly, as I said, population growth, limited water resources. We are depending mainly on the Nile, which is represent 98% actually water resources, leaving 2% of renewable water resources to rainfall, which is mainly on the northern coast. But as I said, also the impact of Upper Nile, the unilateral actions of some of the Upper Nile countries also impacting what might impact our water resources. On the other side, we have an increase in water demand for different sectors and the competition, increasing competition among those sectors when we talk about the limited water resources. And the sector that will be impacted much is actually the agriculture sector. It is the highest user of the water in Egypt, which is also the case in the region, with almost 75% going to agriculture. That increasing water demand, water gap is also meaning that we will have an increase in food gap. Actually, we are importing much of our food currently from abroad, but that gap will increase. We have also one of the challenges is the aging of irrigation and drainage networks. We have some of those networks and structures are more than 100, 150 years. So this is really also needs a lot of rehabilitation works and maintenance. Water quality issues, of course, one of the issues, especially that Egypt is also depending on water reuse to close that increasing water gap. So again, the water quality it is a matter of environment, it's a matter of health impact, but also it is a matter of availability of water to be reused. And we'll have the impact of climate change. We'll talk about that in a separate slide, but also we have impacts because of that. And of course, as many of the other countries, we have the lack of adequate investment in the water sector. Next. So this is the population growth curve together with the per capita water share. Currently, we are above 500 cubic meter per capita per year, but that will go below 500 in a couple of years. But if that, and this is even, I would say this is an optimistic scenario when we talk about population growth of 1.5. The current growth is around 2%. So this is even a population growth that say that by the end of this century will be like 180 cubic meter per capita per year per person. So next. The impact of climate change. Actually, as Egypt is the most downstream country of the Nile Basin, so it is impacted not only by what is happening within the borders, but what is happening in the Nile Basin in general. So whatever impacts the climate change will do in the Nile Basin will impact Egypt as the most downstream country. In addition to that, we have, so that is the Nile inflow might be impacted as well as a major impact. But also we'll have a hotter and drier weather in general, and that also means that more demands for different sectors, especially the agriculture sector, so that will increase. We have also the coastal areas. Most of our investment, most of our population, most of our agricultural land is in the Delta region, the Nile Delta, which is one of the most vulnerable areas in the world when we talk about the sea level rise and the impact of climate change. So again, this is one of the major impacts. And of course, we also have the severe events, which is happening now, more frequent and more intense, causing sometimes also some flash floods, especially in the mountainous areas in Sinai and the Red Sea areas. So again, a major impact of climate change. So really, this is putting more pressure on the limited water resources that we already have. Next. So in a nutshell, this is the Egypt water footprint. The total water demand is 114 billion kilometer per year. We import virtual water of 34 billion, and the available water resources is around 59 billion per year, and that leave us with a water gap of 21 billion kilometer per year. And this gap is closed by reuse of water. So drainage water reuse, agriculture drainage water, treated wastewater reuse, and also the use of shallow groundwater, because shallow groundwater is not a resource, but rather it is mainly coming from the Nile water and seepage from the Nile water and agricultural lands, because there is no recharge for the groundwater from rainfall in Egypt. So mainly it is recharged from the Nile. So it is a sort of reuse. Next. And this is more in a graphic way. So this is a different sector, the different sectors and water demand for each of them. You can see that agriculture is the major water using sector in Egypt, was almost 75% of the water resources, even more, 61, but also comes next municipal, industry, and some evaporation losses in the network, which is around 55,000 kilometers of networks for irrigation and drainage, plus environmental flows of 0.5. So next. On the other hand, those are the available water resources. Nile water is the main water resource, 55.5 billion per year. And then we have the deep groundwater, which is a non-renewable water resource. So we have to be very careful with that, with the use of that resource. It's very important. We have rainfall and flash floods, 1.3 billion per year. Desalination, 0.35. I think this is increasing. The plan is to increase that. I think Dr. Rifat will talk about that later in his presentation, but we have some plans to increase desalination in the coastal areas. And then maybe we can, if you can click, those are not, no, please back, just back. So those are not resources, as we said, those are used to close the gap, but they are not new resources, but rather reuse of existing Nile water resources. Shallow groundwater 7.5 and the reuse of drainage water 13.5. Next. So yeah, we can go on. So actually in 75, when we have the highest one dam, at that time our water resources was more than our water demands. So it was more a supply management. So that water where you need it and how much, and so the proper place and quantity and quality maybe. And that was the case until the 80s, but in the middle 90s that balance was changed. So the demands has been increasing. The resources are still the same. So we had that balance was, as I said, so the demand was more than the resources, and then we looked about the supply and demand management, and that was reflected in the different water policies and plans that has been developed. Since 2005, we are adopting the IWRM concept for the different water policies and the strategies, and that has included in the National Water Strategy for 2050, the National Water Resources Plan for 2017, and the next one, which is the National Water Resources Plan from 2017 until 2037. Next. And the IWRM concept in general that we are adopting is that we have to look at the water supply and demand management, water quantity and quality management, economic instruments and financing of water programs, institutional reforms, the roles of the different institutions, legal amendment and enforcement of the water laws, and of course the involvement of all the stakeholders. So it is not what I'm presenting is not the policy of the ministry, but rather the water policy and water plan for the whole country, for Egypt in general. Next. And the WRM is a sort of a spiral, actually. We start with, we have the plan, we implement that plan, we follow up that in a way, in a coordinated way among the different stakeholders. We monitor and evaluate that, and then define the gaps, and then start maybe the next cycle. And in Egypt now we are in the second cycle. So next. So in general, this is the way how we think about the water resources planning and management in Egypt. It's not really an option, but we had to do that, because otherwise we'll not be able to face the different challenges that we are facing. Next. So as I have mentioned, the spiral. So we started with NWRB 2017. That plan was developed in the late 90s and the beginning of 2000. So it was the time horizon 2017. That plan was developed with 9 other ministries involved in the water management, including agriculture, industry, housing, environment, and other ministries. That plan was implemented. An M&E system was developed to follow up the implementation. We have developed Governorate Water Resources Plan. The Governorate is the administrative unit of Egypt. We have 27 governorates. So we went to the local level, trying to develop Governorate Water Resources Plan at that level, starting with pilots, but also that was generalized later on. We came up with some lessons learned that was reflected in the next National Water Resources Plan, which is targeting 2037. Next. And those are the different strategies and policies that I have talked about. So we have the Water Strategy 2050. It is the overall, it is a vision of the water management in Egypt. We have the National Water Resources Plan, the first phase, 2005-2017. The new phase, which is 2017-2037, was a milestone on 2030 because of the SDGs, but also we have a sustainable development strategy for Egypt for 2030. Which is the overall sustainable strategy for Egypt. So we need to link that also with water. And then come the governorate water plans, and then implementation plans, which is are then also reflected in the investment plans, 4-year plans and yearly plans. Next. And this is some sort of a coordination platform that also coordinate among the different institutions at different levels. We have the Supreme Council for Protection of Nile and Water Courses. And even in the new law, because Egypt was also trying to have a new water law, our laws are mainly from the 80s and they are outdated. I mean, many changes has happened along the way, but also the philosophy was really different. We were we were not that in that scarcity at that time. So we had a new law that was issued in 2021. And in the new law, we have also established a National Water Council for Egypt that is trying to coordinate among the different ministries. And this is also chaired by the Prime Minister. So, but here we have the different levels. At the national level, we have that Supreme Council. We have Technical Committee, which involves the different ministries as listed here, which I mentioned earlier: agriculture, housing, tourism, environment, finance, and planning on the national level. And also we have a similar structure on the governorate level, trying again to coordinate among the different institutions in developing plans, but also in the implementation of those plans. Next.
Very well to interrupt you, but we have to finish within 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, I think I'll do that. I'll not, because at a certain point I'll not continue with the details, but this is the overall, so the overview of that. So we have developed the National Water Resources Plan 2017-2037, which is aiming to secure water for all water users in 2037. So water security for all. This is based on mainly 4 pillars. So develop additional water resources if possible. We don't have much options there. To rationalize the water use, I think we have more options there, but also limited ones. To enhance the water quality, because as I said, this is also impacting how we are reusing water, which is a considerable percentage of the water resources. And then to create the enabling environment for implementing those different pillars. Next. And this is the matrix that was used. I know that you will not see anything, but maybe you can go then, you can click just to show the different elements. So we have the objectives, the 4 objectives that we have, that I have mentioned earlier. Next, specific objectives, and then next, different specific measures, and then the stakeholder matrix, which defines who will do what, which ministry, which stakeholder will do what. Next. And then next, the indicators, and then also how to measure that, and the time frames for doing that, on, as I said, for the next 20 years. Next. Yes. So the enabling environment, this is different elements under the sub objectives, we can say, under the main objective. Next. Enhance the freshwater resources, and then we talk about the cooperation with the Nile countries, flood, rainfall and flash harvesting, additional desalination water, additional groundwater. Next. And then to improve water quality, then, as I said, we are trying to reduce the pollution of different sectors, municipal, agriculture, industries, and so next. And those are the different sub-objectives, so I'll not go into the details of that. Maybe we can go to the next slide. So each of the 4 objectives, we have listed here the different sub-objectives. Next. And then even the different measures. So I think this is more for the reference. If you want to share that at a later stage, that might be helpful for other countries. So I think with that, I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Walid. It was very clear and detailed presentation, and maybe we can, after the webinar, go back to the more detailed documents that you've sent. And now I will leave the floor to Dr. Rifat. Donc le docteur Rifat est le directeur de la recherche et du développement à la société holding de l'eau et de l'assainissement. Donc, il a une vision complète sur ce secteur pour l'Égypte. Et beaucoup d'entre nous le connaissent car il est souvent présent et actif dans le réseau de l'IME. Donc, Rifat, vous allez nous présenter comment l'Égypte se met en marche concrètement avec de multiples actions pour faire face à ces défis. Et en particulier, on verra le cas du dessalement et de la réutilisation des eaux usées. Donc, Dr. Rifat, vous avez la parole. N'oubliez pas de poser des questions en parallèle.
Okay, thank you very much. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm sharing the screen, is okay? Hello?
Yes, we can see it, yes.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you. Thank you, Francois, for your nice introduction. And I'm very honored to be with you today for the webinar organized by IME. Thank you for Alan and his team. I'm going to give an overview about the Egypt water and sanitation sector and the future vision and the perspective. My presentation will cover these items, water supply versus demand, and I think it has been well covered by my colleague, engineer Walid Haïi. The water sector management, water and sanitation sector, current status, future perspective, challenges, and upcoming concern, and some recommendation. As you know, that Egypt is more than maybe 105 million population now, into 250 cities and 4,700 village and 35 settlement, or small community. This is the water the supply versus demand. It has been covered already by my colleague Walid, and as well for the water share per capita. But the message is that Egypt is suffering from water scarcity, and as well it is considered one of the most scarcity country in the world, where is the per share per person less than 600 cubic meter per year. Let's go for the water and sanitation. For our sectors, for drinking water and sanitation, for this sector is under the umbrella of Ministry of Housing, and there is 5 main organizations responsible for managing and constructions of treatment plants. Is the water and wastewater, the CAPO, which is the Construction Authority for Potable Water and Wastewater, NOPWASID, National Organization for Potable Water and the Sanitary Drainage, and the holding company for water and wastewater. Holding company is operate and maintain, but the other organization are the Construction Authority, and recently there is a new urban community authority for the new cities. If you can let have sometimes in a minute, I can explain the drinking water supply and the coverage over the last 10 years. We have significant improvement, whereas now we are almost 99% coverage with drinking water supply. We are producing more than 33 or 33.7 million cubic meter per day for drinking water, and we have about 3,000 water treatment plants. For desalination, if I'm comparing, starting from 2014 till 2023, so in 10 years we have jump and achievement ambitious plan for desalination. Whereas in 2014 it was only 84,000, but now we have more than 1.2 million cubic meter per day desalinated water. However, we have an ambitious plan for desalination, as for the 5 years over till 2025, we are planning to extend our production to 3.4 million cubic meter per day, and for long term till year to 2050, we are planning for more than 9 or 10 million cubic meter per day. This already planned by the government and budgeted. However, because as my colleague explained, Egypt is facing a lot of challenges because of the climate change impact. Recent dam in Ethiopia, a lot of challenges and obstacles meeting the sector. There's a stakeholder involved in desalination project. There's almost many under the umbrella of Ministry of Housing. There are other organizations for Suez Canal authorities and holding company, and also we are planning for BBB for desalination under the umbrella of the Ministry of Finance. Let's go for sanitation. For urban sanitation, we are in a good shape, whereas 96% urban is covered. However, we have challenges still for rural sanitation, whereas only 43% in rural is covered with sanitation. We are producing 6.5 billion cubic meter per year treated wastewater, and you are using all of this wastewater more than one time because of water scarcity. As I said, we have challenges for rural sanitation, and you are dealing with these challenges over the coming few years. We have more than 560 wastewater treatment plants, secondary and tertiary, and the capacity of this treatment plant is 18 million cubic meter per day, and there is more than 300 treatment plant ongoing. Recently, over the last 3 years, we have very good project. It's called the Hayah Karima, or Decent Life project, to deal with 20 governorates to cover the villages for sanitation, and the satellites or the small community was the beneficiaries of half of the population of Egypt. Hayah Karima initiative is integrated program, included electricity, road, youth and sport, rehabilitation, house rehabilitation, health care, education, natural gas, government services, and potable water and sanitation. When you're talking about the water scarcity in Egypt, you have to focus on wastewater reuse. We have planned reuse and unplanned reuse or de facto reuse. For planned reuse, what is the wastewater? The wastewater is treated through the red rectangular wastewater treatment plant to directly to the land, and it's regulated by Egyptian wastewater reuse code. This is direct reuse to the land, direct from the treated water to the land. We have code for reuse regulate the wastewater itself, and the code developed based on the degree of the treatment plant to specify the crops irrigation system, public health requirement, and the monitoring and control system. This is the specs of the code, and we have 4 grades for the treatment: grade A, grade B, grade C, and D. If you start of your focusing grade D is considered as primary treatment, grade C is secondary treatment, grade B is tertiary treatment, and the grade A is advanced treatment, and each grade specifies the type of crops. And here is the crops, against the level of treatment for grade A, B, C, and D, if you want to have a look in it. But the top is A, which is grade A for the advanced treatment. We are using it for landscaping and public and private park. But the lowest one for in D, which is primary treatment for crop to produce cellulose and the timber trees and the solid biomass crops. This is the map for the direct wastewater reuse in Egypt, and here is some of the plants and the crops like castors, barley, flax, jojoba, jotrova, kaya tree, olives, and ornamentals in Upper Egypt, in Luxor and Aswan and Minya in Upper Egypt governorates, and in one or two of Delta governorates. Let's go for unplanned wastewater reuse or de facto reuse. De facto reuse means that the wastewater is charged directly to the agricultural drain, and the agricultural drain is back to the river Nile. And in this case, in Upper Egypt, where is the drain, all the drains are going back to the river Nile, and the river Nile used for irrigation. This is configuration 1. For configuration 2, where is the wastewater is going direct to the drain, and the drain is used for reuse, direct without going back to agricultural canal to the fresh water, and in this case is focused or situated in delta area. That's why there are mega projects to clean and to treat the drainage water. Egypt, over the last 3 years, or even 5 years, developed a very new approach to reuse totally the agricultural drainage through the mega project. We are reusing more than 14 billion cubic meter per day through mega project. We have 3 mega projects. First one is Bahr Bakr, the treatment plant that collects the water from the delta area with 5.6 million cubic meter per day, and the Mahsama is 1 million cubic meter per day, and the Hammam area, Hammam treatment plants, for total capacity of 7.5 million cubic meter per day is under construction. The total will be, as I said, 14 million cubic meter per day will be reused for agriculture to face the water scarcity and the challenges that country facing. Let's go for a challenge. We have Walid already mentioned some of it, but as you said, as Walid explained as well, for population growth, capacity building for service provider, we need to strengthen the capacity to develop the scales for our staff to deal with the challenge. Limited water resources, already mentioned by my colleague, and the investment required, huge investment that required in addition to low water tariff. As all knows, that the climate change impact that affect the ensuring the sustainability of the surface and the maintaining water availability. we are now trying to involve the private sector to take over the responsibility, especially in the desalination project and other water project. There is other concern that I need to focus on actually, and it has been discussed even with our colleagues from IME. From IME, you know, the COVID-19 and the pathogenic organism in wastewater, the micropollutants and the emerging contaminants like antibiotics, pharmaceutical residue, microplastic, and the nutrients because of disposal of wastewater, untreated wastewater to the drain nowadays in Egypt. This is the recommendation that you know that I have to mention to you in the moment. There is a pressing need to nationalize the desalination membrane. We are trying to nationalize the desalination membrane manufacturing technology in Egypt, and we are trying to attract the companies to implement such factories in Egypt and to make to subsidize the production of the membrane in Egypt. It is necessary to develop affordable and effective sanitation system, especially for a small community in Egypt, to safe disposal of wastewater. For safe disposal of wastewater, agricultural drains recycling is one of the most promising way to enhance food security and to face water scarcity already existing. Emerging contaminants, microplastic, and micropollutants, pharmaceutical and the antibiotic residue shall be taken the priority for collaborative project between Mediterranean country. Assessment and based on a study develops a standard for emerging contaminant, to the detection limit, disposal, and the awareness campaign are highly recommended. Thank you very much, and sorry if I take more time than the land.
Merci beaucoup, Rifat et Walid en même temps. Je remercie les deux intervenants car nous avons maintenant des informations très précises sur l'Égypte avec des sujets intéressants comme j'ai noté la matrice opérationnelle sur la planification qui, vu comme ça, ressemble beaucoup à ce que l'on fait aussi en Europe avec les plans de la directive cadre sur l'eau. Tout est détaillé et noté, suivi par des indicateurs, et donc on n'est pas dans un plan sur la comète, comme on dit en français, mais sur des objectifs concrets que l'on peut suivre et évaluer. Alors, je vais me faire l'interprète de deux questions. Une question pour Walid et ensuite une question pour Rifat. La question pour Walid, c'est un peu concernant le changement climatique. Est-ce qu'il y a des projections, des études sur les débits futurs de la rivière, enfin du Nil, du fleuve Nil, dans les années qui viennent? Parce qu'on sait que, par exemple, le Rhône, on a étudié, on sait son débit va baisser de 30% dans les 15 ans qui viennent. Donc, qu'en est-il sur le Nil et également les projections des prélèvements sur le haut bassin? Your microphone is...
Yeah, thank you very much. We have to deal with that with scenarios, as you have mentioned. So we have different scenarios. We have different global circulation models, global climate models, which gives different results in general. But most of them actually is mentioning that we'll have lower, I mean, less water coming from the Nile to Egypt because of climate change. I mean, as I said, this is something that we are trying also to use regional circulation models to enhance the results, to downscale that, but still we have to deal with scenarios. So we have a series of scenarios. Many of the models saying that it will be less, but that will be, of course, validated with time. So the Upper Nile developments, one of the other part of the question, this is still, of course, under heavy negotiations with our countries in the basin, Ethiopia and Sudan, and this is even some rounds are still ongoing on that. Hopefully, that will reach a legal agreement, a binding agreement for all countries, so that we can really manage that shared water resources for the benefit of all countries of the basin. Thank you.
Okay. Merci. Je vais donc poser une deuxième question plutôt à Dr Rifat, parce que effectivement tout ce qui a été dit sur la réutilisation des eaux usées traitées intéresse beaucoup les participants. Ça rejoint d'ailleurs le projet porté par l'IME sur l'observatoire des ressources en eau non conventionnelles et des énergies nécessaires. L'idée, c'est bien de partager les expériences dans ce domaine. Là, on a une expérience tout à fait originale avec la réutilisation des eaux usées provenant de l'agriculture, du drainage. Et on voit que ça n'est pas si simple que ça, puisqu'il y a des contaminations diverses. Donc, il y a une question qui demande, est-ce que la réutilisation des eaux usées traitées est réservée à l'agriculture, et en même temps, quel est le tarif? Est-ce qu'il y a des tarifs pour les utilisateurs d'eau usée traitée de l'eau qu'ils récupèrent?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, there is no tariff so far for reuse, and we have experienced. What is the other question? The other question. So the tariff and what was the other question?
L'autre question. The other question is: are the reused treated waters especially for irrigation?
Oh yes, yes. The code is regulated only the wastewater, the treated wastewater for irrigation. So far, we are using the wastewater, the treated wastewater for irrigation, but it depends on the treated efficiency and the treated characteristics of the wastewater. So there is no other sources or other reuse of wastewater till today. However, we are now studying the reuse of wastewater, treated wastewater for industry. So it depends about the feasibility study and the nearby industries in Upper Egypt and in other treatment plants. So it depends the viability of the option itself. But I must say that only treated wastewater reusing for irrigation.
Ok. Merci beaucoup. Bon, il reste encore quelques petites questions. Peut-être qu'on les communiquera aux orateurs s'ils peuvent y répondre par la suite dans le compte-rendu que l'on fera de ce séminaire. Je rappelle aux participants qu'on peut visionner les présentations sur la chaîne YouTube de l'IME après le séminaire. Donc, je vous propose maintenant d'entendre l'expérience de la Turquie, grâce à Madame Ezgul Kibaroglu, qui est professeure et docteur de l'université MEF de Istanbul, et qui est en même temps présidente dans cette université du département sciences politiques et relations internationales. Donc, son propos va faire un panorama rapide de la planification en Turquie, mais également elle va développer les évolutions institutionnelles et un focus particulier sur l'hydrodiplomatie. Voilà, Madame, vous avez la parole.
Thank you very much, Monsieur Gerber. Thank you very much for the invitation to the Institute, Mediterranean Institute. Very happy to be here among with the esteemed colleagues from the Institute and for the participants. Today, I will try to explain you my knowledge and experience on Turkey's water policy, as Francois already mentioned, with a specific focus on Turkey's transboundary water relations. Let me share my screen. So I will try to look into national and transboundary frameworks. My expertise is more on the transboundary issues, but I always try to understand and explain the national setting as well. Yeah, like Egypt, Turkey is also water scarce, and it's like there's a huge variation in the precipitation, in rainfall. Some areas receive more than 3,000 millimeters in North Turkey, Black Sea region, but most of Turkey is receiving around 500 millimeter water, and this is the precipitation map. And all in all, Turkey has exploitable water resources around more than 100 billion cubic meters, but the half of this potential is already developed, and the political rhetoric is always emphasizing that the other half needs to be developed as well. And among from these, out of these water resources, more than 70% is allocated to agriculture, and 13% or to domestic water, and 13% to industry. And there's an ambition, projections to reduce allocations to agriculture by increasing efficiency. And of course, it's not only surface water, but there's also significant use of groundwater. But 70% of the water comes from surface, and around 30% comes from groundwater. And yeah, there are 25 river basins. Compared to our Middle East neighbors, it seems like Turkey is full of rivers, but all in all, compared to the population growth, also the immigration to Turkey in the last 10-15 years, and increasing needs due to the higher standards of living, climate change, water quality deterioration, 25 river basins along with groundwater resources are really under stress. And today I will be focusing more on, among these 25 river basins, I will be focusing more on the Euphrates and Tigris basin, which is, Euphrates is originating from Turkey, Tigris, half of the flow originates from Turkey. So I will try to focus on this basin, but this is one of the 25 river basins. And yeah, if we look into the institutional national water management in Turkey, we can clearly identify well-established historical institutions in water management and planning. And if we look into this chart, which is quite crowded, but there is a logic here that in Minister of Agriculture and Forestry is in charge of water development, management and planning, especially its Directorate General of State Hydraulic Works, which has been building dams and irrigation systems since 1950s, along with the water protection agencies and also other water issues. So we can see that the ministry is in charge of planning and management, but the other ministries are like environment and urbanization is especially concerned with water quality management and the climate change issues. And among other ministries, Minister of Foreign Affairs on the very right side of the chart or the figure, Minister of Foreign Affairs is the key administration to deal with transboundary water resources. This institutional framework developed especially when Turkey started negotiations with the European Union in early 2000s. New administrations added to the Management and Planning Agency, along with the Water Development Agency. We have the General Directorate of Water Management, which looks into mostly to the river basin planning, river protection, and also water quality management. There is also the institute called Turkish Water Institute, which contributes to water diplomacy as well. So Turkey's relations, which is stumbled, but which started in any case early 2000s, the negotiations with European Union really had an impact on, especially with the understanding of river basin planning, and basin management committees were established for 25 river basins composed of ministries, local governments, municipalities, other stakeholders like irrigation associations, organizational industrial sites, and universities and NGOs. So there is an effort in Turkey in the last 2 decades to plan the river basins at the basin scale and to pay attention to the environmental objectives of the European Union Water Framework Directive. Yeah, this is a very brief summary of Turkey's water management since 1950s, because the modern water management started with the establishment of the Central Water Agency, the so-called DSI in Turkish acronym, with the start of the creation of the Republic and the consolidation of the state. The first framework laws were adopted, and the idea was to develop the river basins, to generate hydropower, to irrigate the fields, and to provide drinking domestic water to the population. So it was 1950s, like many places in the world, the main objective and planning and management was on the idea of water development for energy purposes, and also for national energy, hydropower, because Turkey was very much dependent on imported energy. Hydropower was considered as a national energy. So many dams, like hundreds of dams, nearly reaching 700 dams were constructed since 1950s. However, there has been a change in the 1980s. That state-led development has been also supported by private sector. There was an inclination to privatize hydropower, also drinking water as well. And there had been successes and failures, lessons learned from privatization, but it wasn't anymore public agencies managing or developing the resource anymore, but private sector companies, and also irrigation associations, water user associations, managing and operating and distributing the water at the irrigation level. And since the 1950s, dozens of legislation law was adopted for surface water, groundwater, and for drinking water, energy, and agriculture. More than 100 laws try to govern the water management in Turkey. So there is a quite confusing picture. That's why there's an effort since early 2000s to make a framework, national framework water law, to update the rights and obligations of the water users, and to clarify their role, and also to give their water property rights, as well as deal with the new challenges like climate change or transboundary water relations. However, this law is still in the draft stage, is not adopted. So mostly water is governed by constitution, by civil law, by groundwater law, by the state hydraulic works establishment law, and municipality law, of course, and irrigation associations law. Yeah, there are some excerpts from my publications about what I mean by privatization. Hydropower privatization mostly occurred at the level of mostly at the build, operate, and transfer system. But recently, in the last 10-15 years, small rivers have been privatized through the participation of the companies. There is an agreement between the state agency and the companies to give the water user rights to the companies from the small rivers, and lessons learned from this privatization as well. And another change in the irrigation management, it has been developed, managed, and operated by state for many decades, but since 1990s, there is an accelerated, speedy transfer process from state to the irrigation districts to the farmers. And there had been, Turkey has a great experience in this transfer, but there are also lessons learned that we can discuss later. So there is an ambition to provide water security, like in all other countries all over the world. And it is considered as very much linked to the food and energy security, but also it has to be paying attention to the preserving of ecosystems, and also addressing the key vulnerabilities and risks from the climate change. So there is this a simple figure which I created, that Turkey's water security has these pillars like energy, water, food security is tried to be provided by the state institutions along with private and civil society. There is an institutional well-established institutional setting to deal with these ambitions. And of course, Turkey has very significant relations with our neighbors over the transponder rivers, which I will move in the second half of my talk right now. So if I try to simply explain the strategic role of water for Turkey and its water diplomacy, Turkey's national water policy comprises a set of strategic long-term objectives, such as increasing agricultural production, ensuring food security, meeting the growing needs of urban and rural populations, as well as industry, and phasing out dependence on imported energy, natural gas and petroleum dependence, trying to get rid of this, and also eliminating the regional economic and social imbalances within the country. There had been differences between the development differences between the southeastern region and eastern region and the rest of Turkey. So with the projects introduced like Southeastern Anatolia project, the so-called GAP in Turkish acronym, these imbalances of economic and social imbalances try to be corrected. That's the major objectives, strategic objectives of Turkey. This, as you can follow, this is a very developmentalist strategy. So Turkey is trying to develop its resources to the very 100%. This developmentalist venture objectives in national water policy also shaped the institutional and legal foundations of Turkey's foreign water policy, which is the water diplomacy. And it also brought complexities and challenges to the relations with her neighbors. As I try to explain the national water setting, there's also a clear-cut, clearly established, identifiable institutions in Turkey's transponder water policy planning and management, which we can call water diplomacy framework. And here the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is the central node of the system. It plans and implements and executes the water diplomacy principles and policies, but it also works with the line ministries like Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, and especially the Directorate Generals like DSI, the Water Development Agency, building dams and irrigation systems, and along with also Water Management, General Directorate of Water Management, which deals with the harmonization with European Union, and along with the other regional development administrations. And Minister of Foreign Affairs is also very much related to the relations with neighbors, and it was the active party to establish joint technical committees with the neighboring states like Syria, Iraq, or maybe in the eastern Turkey or in the northwestern Turkey. We have other institutions involved with Turkey's transponder or water diplomacy, which are humanitarian water diplomacy, I call it, because Turkey received millions of refugees and under temporary protection, especially from Syria, but from other countries as well. It's in millions, definitely more than 5 million. And those agencies for emergency and disaster management also deals with providing sanitation and drinking water purposes to the people in the crisis areas and the increasing population in the border provinces, cities. And there's a huge effort in these institutions and DSI is also dealing with these issues. So if we can identify the principles of water diplomacy and the institutions, maybe we can understand more what is the objectives of Turkey in its transboundary rivers. Turkey sees the water as a basic human right, and so it always believed in that there's a right to use and utilize the water for upstream, downstream, midstream countries. We shouldn't forget that Turkey is upstream in some river basins, but also downstream in other river basins. That's why Turkey follows the customary international water law principles of equitable utilization and not to give significant harm. And there is also an emphasis on the efficiency of water use. And there's also an emphasis that there is a huge variability, fluctuations in flow due to the hydrological, meteorological, and also human-made climate conditions. So that's why the necessary arrangements for water allocation should be done according to these hydrological and meteorological conditions. And there is also an understanding in Turkish water diplomacy that the benefits should be shared, which are the benefits gained from water, such as hydropower, irrigation management, and also drinking water. That's why Turkey is always following cooperation of building joint dams to provide energy and flood control and other purposes. So if you look into this map, which tries to simply define the Turkey's major transponder rivers, from left to the right, you can see in the northwestern Turkey, Turkey shares a river called Maîtrize or Evros in Greek, with Greece, Bulgaria, and Turkey is downstream in that river basin. So Turkey is a neighbor to the European Union countries, Bulgaria and Greece. And the major problem in this basin is flood control, mitigating and protection from the floods. But there are also extreme conditions of droughts as well. Turkey is the most downstream. There are very less or non-existent areas for water development or water storage. So it relies on what is happening in Bulgaria, the upstream country. And both Greece and Turkey is very vulnerable to the floods and also ecological change. And to the east, Turkey shares the river basin, the Çoruh River basin with Georgia, and they have a very good political relations, Georgia and Turkey. So it reflects in transponder relations as well. But there was also a call from Georgia, Turkey's upstream in Çoruh basin, to deal with sediment losses because of the building of dams on Turkish portion of the river. Water diplomacy mechanisms has been used to settle these problems about sedimentation. And we cannot say that there's a very difficult problems in Çoruh basin. Going to the east as well, again, there's the Kura-Aras basin, which Turkey is upstream, along with Iran, and downstream countries like Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia are the riparian states as well. And there have been some agreeable relations over historical agreements. And also there's an interesting water diplomacy between Armenia and Turkey because they built a joint dam on the Aras River, even during the Cold War times when the two countries were in different camps. And this dam for hydropower generation is operated together with two countries, and it's still in operation, and it is a symbol of good water diplomacy. And when we come to the southern neighbors, we have the Euphrates Tigris basin, which Turkey is sharing with Syria, Iraq, and Iran. And this is one of the most difficult basins because water issues are also linked to the non-riparian security issues. And that has been a competition over the use. All countries wanted to develop the resource since 1960s. There was an increasing of demand for hydropower and agricultural water use. Irrigation areas had been expanded. So this competition made necessary for the countries to sit and talk about their water resources. So on the one hand, it's very competitive, but if you look into the original sources and to the relations between the countries, you can see that all countries preferred water diplomacy than making water as a part of hot conflict. And also there is the Orontes basin, which Turkey is a downstream riparian again, which originates from Lebanon, flows through Syria, and Turkey is the most downstream. And the relations were quite strained during the Cold War years because Syria never recognized the border with Turkey over the Orontes River, and Syria never recognized that Orontes is a transponder river between Turkey and Syria. But in the early 2000s, when there was a significant political rapprochement between Turkey and Syria for a 10 years time, there was a huge progress in the relations, and they agreed to build a joint dam on the Orontes River on the Turkish-Syrian border and share the benefits of this dam, especially flood control for Turkey, energy production and agricultural water use for Syria. But unfortunately, because of the unrest, starting of unrest in Syria, turning into the civil war, this dam could not be constructed. Even the construction had started in March, but also the unrest started in same March 2011. So it was postponed and it couldn't be accomplished, this joint dam. So in the last part of my talk, if I'm not too long, I will try to look into the, briefly look into the transponder water politics in the most controversial river basin, the Euphrates and Tigris. And here there is this historical sequence of events, a summary. What I'm trying to say here is that there had been also problems in the basin because of the water development. It started with the 1960s. Both upstream countries like Turkey and Syria wanted to develop the river basin. They started building their large-scale dams. Turkey's Keban Dam, Syria's Tapka Dam were built in the same period, and they've been also impounded, filled in the same period. And during the filling of this dam in 1975, there was a political crisis between Syria and Iraq because the water flow was reduced due to the filling of the Tapka Dam and Keban Dam. And there was a political crisis which was mediated by the Middle East countries. So dam building and filling of the dams become a thorny issue among the riparians in the Euphrates-Tigris basin, but at the same time, they had to find a way for dialogue, especially the most downstream country, Iraq, which is very, very much dependent on Euphrates and Tigris as a freshwater resource. It wanted to talk with Turkey and Syria on the changes in the river system due to the dams, and they established joint technical committee in 1980 to discuss about the construction of the dams, operation, and the filling of the dams. This committee worked for some years on and off, and it is still valid, but it works time to time. We can discuss in the questions. It is the only formal institution valid in the system. But there had been problems with the committee because the ambitious objectives of the upstream and downstream countries were different. Iraq and Syria wanted to share the river basin through an agreement, through a treaty immediately, while Turkey wanted to study the river basin, water resources and irrigable land resources, and then to allocate the water resources. So it didn't produce the most demanded treaty. But at the same time, the two countries reached water sharing agreements on the Euphrates River. In 1987, Turkey agreed to give almost half of the flow of the Euphrates to Syria, while Syria and Iraq agreed on the percentages to share the Euphrates flow, which Syria agreed to give 58% of the Euphrates flow to Iraq. So it shows that the countries are politically confrontational, and it was very much marred with the Cold War relations, where Turkey was with NATO, while Syria and Iraq was Soviet Union ally, but they also attempted to establish an institutional structure, also signed treaties. And lately, in the 2000s, the recent memoranda of understanding between the countries were more promising than the earlier institutions or treaties, because it had a more comprehensive approach. Those series of memoranda of understanding, which were achieved during the 2000s, had a more comprehensive approach, referring to the integrated water resources management, rather than sharing the system and going their own ways. This time, they try to focus on how to manage the river system in a more efficient and equitable way. And in the following few slides, I will concentrate on this memorandum of understanding, which Turkey signed with Iraq in 2009 for the water. It is called Water Protocol, and they agreed on issues like calibration of hydrological measurements, modernization of irrigation, prevention of water losses from domestic water supply, and construction of water supply and water treatment facilities in Iraq. through the participation of Turkish companies, and also dealing with the problems of prolonged droughts. And not only droughts, but floods are also the fact of life in the basin, and also controlling the flood. So the difference between the earlier protocols and this one is that there is a significant focus on how to manage the water resource in an integrated way, not only sharing the resource and then going their own ways to maybe waste the resource or inefficiently use it, but trying to find ways and harmonize how they manage and utilize the water resources. And it is very much related to the management practices at the domestic level and also at the irrigation practices. Turkey also signed protocols with Syria before the Syrian civil war erupted, and it was 2009 again. And there was an agreement on building a dam on the Orontes River, which I mentioned earlier. And there was an agreement that Syria can withdraw water from Tigris. Tigris is a boundary river with Syria, and before Syria never used the river, but in the 2000s, Syria planned to build irrigation fields on the Tigris portion, and Turkey and Iraq agreed that Syria can pump water from the border Tigris River. They also agreed on the measures to harmonize their policies about drought management in the basin level, and that was a reference to the water quality management. These were not the issues in the 1960s, 70s, 80s. Those issues came to the agenda in 2000s, which was a great progress in my opinion. And it was mostly Turkey was very much influenced with her relations with European Union negotiations, and she tried to reflect these policies with her relations with Syria and Iraq as well. Unfortunately, these protocols could not be implemented. This was majorly due to the political instability and strained relations, bilateral relations between the riparians. It was majorly due to the eruption of the Syrian civil war. But Turkey and Iraq tried to find, after uncertainties imposed by the Syrian civil war, Turkey and Iraq tried to revitalize the bilateral water diplomacy again, and they revitalized the 2009 protocol, and they tried to emphasize joint projects over the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and in 2014, they signed another protocol in the field of water, referring to climate change cooperation, again, data cooperation, joint dams, and so on and so forth in the last paragraph. And they also agreed in 2019, Turkey and Iraq diplomacy agreed to establish a water resources research and application center, an international organization between two countries in Baghdad to address water issues in the region. So if we analyze briefly where this Turkey-Iraq track is going, it shows that bilateral cooperation can be a solution while there's an unrest, while there's a political instability with one of the riparians. And of course, if we analyze these protocols, we have to check whether these protocols are successful or failure by looking into the changes in the socioeconomic status of people, whether their status are better off, whether they are in better condition, economic condition in terms of increasing income levels or benefits directly. And of course, we should also pay attention how these protocols cope with the impacts of climate change and so forth. So in conclusion, especially referring to Turkey's water diplomacy, transboundary water relations, in terms of positive sides, prospects, I try to present that there is a consistent and clear and adaptable water diplomacy institutions led by the foreign ministry. The principles are clear, always declared by the water ministry, and it's in line with the customary water law. And also Turkey preferred bilateral water agreements with her neighbors since the establishment of the Republic, but also recently as well. And there is a promise in benefit sharing approach that joint dams or also irrigation management projects, wastewater treatment projects, data harmonization, those are all beneficial for the riparians to act together rather than only sharing the river basin. But there are challenges as well that in Turkey's water diplomacy framework, we still see the dominance of state institutions. There is the lack of meaningful participation of the civil society, academia, and think tanks. There is still room for them to participate. And we see also that Turkey is not party to the global conventions. This is also a problematic case, but we can explain the reasons and how it can be also mitigated. And bilateral agreements is a good sign of the fact that Turkey and its neighbors are preferring water diplomacy than turning water into a source of conflict, but they can be more beneficial if they are turning to multilateral agreements involving all riparian states, but not only the states, but also the other stakeholders from the related developmental sectors, and giving particular attention to climate change. So those are the recommendations probably coming from my side, underlining the challenges. And thank you very much for your attention.
Merci beaucoup pour votre exposé, parce que c'est toujours intéressant d'avoir le point de vue d'universitaires, de scientifiques, et le point de vue qu'on a eu aussi précédemment de gens qui sont opérationnels dans les ministères et dans les sociétés d'opérateurs. Bon, j'ai bien retenu dans votre exposé, on a retrouvé des principes que l'on avait vus dans d'autres pays à l'occasion d'autres présentations. Toujours ce changement de politique d'offre vers des politiques de demande, gestion de la demande en eau. Je crois que ça, c'est quelque chose qu'on a vu pratiquement dans tous les exposés de ce cycle de webinaires. Également, l'évolution des lois qui se fait au fur et à mesure bien sûr des innovations, mais aussi des essais et des réussites, ce qui marche, ce qui ne marche pas. On voit que les lois sur l'eau ne sont pas pour l'éternité, elles sont constamment révisées dans tous les pays, et je pense que c'est plutôt bénéfique. Et puis, vous avez surtout parlé de ces problèmes d'eau transfrontière que l'on avait déjà vus, mais dans d'autres webinaires, mais sans détailler autant. Je pense que c'est un apport très intéressant pour le forum méditerranéen qui aura un thème sur l'hydrodiplomatie. Par contre, je n'ai pas eu beaucoup de questions via le chat, peut-être parce que vous avez tout déjà répondu aux questions dans votre exposé. J'ai quand même une question donc, que je vous retransmets dans le cas du bassin de l'Oron, avec cette idée d'un barrage dont on va partager les bénéfices. Est-ce que vous pouvez détailler un peu plus comment ça se passe, un partage de bénéfices dans un tel accord?
I think it's not the only dam in the world how to share the benefits of the dam. I'm sure engineers, colleagues, esteemed colleagues in this group knows better than me. But as far as I can understand as a political scientist, that the dams can be, first of all, it's a hard negotiation to reach, to agree on the joint dam technically, where to construct the dam. It's roughly the border, the politicians agreed, because Turkey-Syria had very good relations from 2000 to 2011. At the highest political level, presidents agreed that there could be a dam on the border between Turkey and Syria. But of course, the technical people, technocrats, and diplomats met several times to agree on where exactly on the border, topographically, technically, and also considering the social, economic, and environmental impacts. So it was a long negotiation process, but it was a fruitful one. And they started, and it wasn't very long compared to the other negotiations. They started negotiating for the dam in the mid-2000s, and they agreed on all the technical details by the end of 2010. And before the unrest in Syria, prime ministers went to the region, and they even started the construction in February 2011. So they had a ceremony, groundbreaking ceremony there. In March 2011, but the same month, the unrest started in Syria, and then it became more complicated. And the dam building was canceled. So the benefits to be shared was like Turkey was very much in need as a downstream riparian of flood control. Flooding was a huge problem for decades, if not centuries. And also Turkey needed storage on the topographically appropriate site so that it can also store water for agriculture production and energy production, as well as for drought management. So these extremes are very much lived through, like in many parts of the world. There are sometimes floods, but mostly prolonged droughts, flash floods and droughts. So the dam was constructed as a multi-purpose dam for sharing the energy. For Syrian side, it was the advantage of getting energy. And for Turkey, maybe more advantageous position because it needed the flood control, and also energy will be shared. And there was some idea to develop agriculture as well, but this was a small portion of the dam. The major idea was controlling the floods and producing energy with the dam. So those were the benefits designed, and the negotiators are still alive, but they were dispersed to the world, the Syrians, and Turkish-Syrian relations deteriorated after 2012. Diplomatic relations were cut off, and that's why in the last decade and so that's why the dam could not be constructed. But who knows, maybe the relations can be repaired and they may start from the scratch. But Turkey built another dam on the Orontes, meanwhile, because there was a need for flood control. I don't know, there might be new negotiations needed to revise this joint dam. And the dam that I talked about between Turkey and Armenia on the transponder river called Arax River or Aras River is also from 1980s, and it is for hydropower production. And both countries use this hydropower, and it's the symbol of great cooperation during Cold War, after Cold War. And it's not a very large-scale dam, but it was very skillfully managed by the technocrats and diplomats since 45 years.
Ok, merci beaucoup pour ce témoignage et ces exemples de gestion des eaux transfrontières. J'en profite pour citer aussi une remarque de notre ami Raouda, tout à fait justifiée, que bien sûr il y a les échanges d'eau par les rivières qui traversent les frontières, mais il ne faut pas oublier les échanges d'eau que l'on appelle l'eau virtuelle, qui se produisent par l'échange notamment des produits agricoles. Ils sont produits avec de l'eau, donc de l'eau consommée dans un pays et le produit étant consommé dans un autre pays, comme s'il s'agissait d'une exportation. Donc je crois que le thème de l'hydrodiplomatie du prochain forum est particulièrement complexe et riche. Voilà, je pense que maintenant, compte tenu du temps aussi, on peut arrêter pour aujourd'hui. En conclusion, hein, je dirais qu'on retrouve, comme ce n'est pas le premier séminaire, c'est très intéressant parce qu'on retrouve toujours des similitudes. Ça nous amène à pouvoir dire dans un forum méditerranéen que tel problème ou telle expérience est vraiment généralisée. Ça nous donne une vision vraiment très globale des choses. Et puis, on a également, un peu à l'inverse, des expériences qui sont assez uniques, originales dans tel ou tel pays. et qui peuvent inspirer à l'ensemble des autres pays membres du réseau de l'IME. Voilà, donc je crois qu'on a, grâce à cette série de webinaires, disons un matériau, enfin un contenu qui nous permet vraiment d'enrichir le processus méditerranéen, qui lui-même servira au processus mondial du Conseil mondial de l'eau jusqu'au forum de Bali. Voilà, Alain, si tu veux dire quelques mots de conclusion, je te cède la parole.
Écoutez, merci à tous, merci à nos intervenants. C'est jamais facile de faire une conférence. En tout cas, c'était très intéressant par la complémentarité des interventions. Ça, c'est très important. Les trois sujets qui ont été touchés aujourd'hui, donc on va dire d'une part la gestion intégrée des ressources en eau avec l'exposé de notre ami Walid et puis notre ami Rifat sur la partie gestion urbaine de l'eau et enfin cette vision des problèmes transfrontaliers donc sont très complémentaires et les trois correspondent également à trois des sessions que nous avons au sein du Forum méditerranéen de l'eau. Donc, ça sera vraiment l'occasion, la semaine prochaine, le 18 octobre, à Valence, d'approfondir ces thématiques. Et comme le dit très bien François, nous allons nous appuyer sur les conclusions de ces différentes expériences de 10 pays que nous avons pu voir depuis maintenant le début de l'année. Donc, cette dizaine de pays méditerranéens pour compléter justement les retours d'expérience que nous pourrons avoir au cours du prochain forum à Tunis. Et c'est le débat qui sera complètement ouvert la semaine prochaine à Valence pour justement compléter nos notes de concept de ces différentes sessions, que ce soit la gestion intégrée des ressources en eau, les ressources en eau non conventionnelles et l'optimisation de la demande en eau et de l'usage, surtout de l'usage de l'eau dans les différents secteurs d'activité. Et puis enfin, cette affaire d'hydrodiplomatie qui n'est pas que transfrontalière et nous allons essayer de mettre l'accent sur le fait qu'elle est aussi régionale dans un même pays. C'est le cas de l'Espagne, c'est le cas de la France notamment, et elle peut être aussi bien entendu on doit pouvoir utiliser aussi l'hydrodiplomatie pour gérer les conflits d'usage. Donc ça, ce sont des choses qu'il faut maintenant, sur lesquelles il faut avancer. D'ailleurs, Ezegoul, il faut que je vous dise une chose importante, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, les diplomates dans le monde sont en train de se former à l'hydrodiplomatie, parce que ça devient un sujet tellement important qu'il faut qu'ils soient eux-mêmes prêts et formés. Donc des personnes comme vous ont du pain sur la planche pour former les diplomates turcs d'abord, mais également les diplomates français, les diplomates américains, les diplomates qui existent un peu de partout dans le monde, parce que ces sujets d'hydrodiplomatie vont être sur la table de la plupart des futurs congrès et surtout des objectifs et des enjeux dans les différents pays, notamment bien entendu en Méditerranée. Mais nous avons justement en Méditerranée, grâce à l'expérience que vous venez de présenter, donc un retour d'expérience sur justement ce partage de la ressource entre différents pays, comme cela existe d'ailleurs de manière différemment organisée avec le fleuve Sénégal et l'Office de mise en valeur du fleuve Sénégal ou du fleuve Gambie, deux expériences proches de nous qui nous permettent de voir que quand on veut, on peut, et on peut répartir cette ressource en eau entre différents pays dans la mesure où les données sont bien connues et bien partagées entre tous. Voilà, merci beaucoup en tout cas François pour avoir réussi à faire cette série de webinaires avant le kick-off de notre forum méditerranéen. Il n'est pas impossible qu'on en fasse une ou deux encore avant le forum lui-même, et puis peut-être, pourquoi pas, après, entre le forum méditerranéen et le forum mondial, tout ça pour compléter, si c'est nécessaire, eh bien, la vision que l'Institut méditerranéen de l'eau et l'Union pour la Méditerranée conjointe apportent justement à ce forum et au processus régional méditerranéen. Merci encore à tous pour votre participation Et à très bientôt sur le réseau, mais surtout à Valence le 18 octobre. À bientôt.